Emerson, thank you. You have brought the resurrection with us this morning in the middle of Lent. What a wonderful gift that is to have. Michelle's son is ill, and probably the biggest disappointment with that is not only will she not be able to share her story this morning, she will another time, but William misses the Pokemon after worship. So that oh, what wonderful news. If you're on YouTube, Michelle, which I think you are, it's being rescheduled. Do you know when? No, okay. It's being rescheduled. So anyway, realizing that, I yesterday put together a few thoughts that will come from our text this morning and will also pull us back into the messages that we do find and that we do need to walk with in this season of Lent. So we'll probably be dialing down here into something that may feel a little bit heavier. But it is our text for this morning, and it is clear that Jesus has much to teach his disciples about what being the Messiah means. And it's not the typical understanding of a Messiah of gold and armies and ruling in any way, but the rough message that being the Messiah, he must face betrayal, denial, rejection by the religious authorities, suffering, death, and then the text says, rising on the third day. The mystery of the resurrection is also included. But when you read that passage, one can feel the stakes rising for the disciples. Suddenly, there's more to being his disciple than watching him doing these amazing healing connections that he's doing, of listening to him and the way he teaches in a form that engages and is silenced by the people to be able to hear. But instead, what the disciples hear, that if they are going to follow him, they must take up their crosses and paradoxically lose their lives. Those who want to save their life, Mark says, will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will save it. Now, these disciples cannot say, no one ever warned me, no one told me there would be pain and public mockery and suffering, because Jesus clearly told them. So why did they follow? Why do we follow? Some thoughts. Perhaps they followed because they'd heard the story of the Samaritan woman, and they saw how Jesus connected with her and gave her permission to be herself with whatever she had done in her past. They saw that he named the realities in her life with all the beauty and all the sins. And yet he invited her just as she was to repent and to believe. Perhaps they followed because they experienced him giving and bringing healing and forgiveness that embodied a new regime, very unlike the Romans around them. He invited them perhaps into the possibility of living in a different world or a different way of seeing the world. Or perhaps they followed because they experienced that open communication with God. And they began perhaps to follow because with him, like with Emerson, they began to experience the power of community, one that is here among us at Reskov. They followed. For whatever reason they followed, that included not only the messages of pain and of sacrifice, but the messages that they had experienced in walking with him. But as followers then, one of the hard things of the many kind of hard messages in our text is that as we become followers of Jesus, we are also asked to lose ourselves. Lose ourselves. What does that mean? Let your own mind bring to light whatever might be ruminating in there. Walt Brueggemann, who's a favorite of mine, and apparently it was of Pastor Aaron's too, right? Says it this way: true discipleship does require denial of self, but that can only occur when there is a self to deny or to lose. The call is not to lose that self, but to lose the self that might be self-serving or egocentric or even harmful. But losing oneself is not self-denial, it's the opposite. It's the claiming of that self that we are intended to be. Lent gives us time and space to reflect upon what might be keeping us from becoming that full self that has the freedom to be the followers of Christ. What parts of ourselves is Jesus inviting us to lose so that we can be that self that is free to give the compassion, mercy, and justice that our world needs? Let me offer a few examples that have been and are a part of what I have experienced for myself, and maybe there'll be some for you, and of course you just name your own or think about your own. But one that is a part of myself that I continue losing is regrets. This has been a long life so far for me, hopefully some more, and regrets can easily be a focus as you look back over a longer life. And there have been many that I can easily find. And I'm going to share this. My husband has been crossed over 10 years and 7 months tomorrow. And there are still times in that long span of being with him that I can come up with, I see that clearly, and a regret just pounds in my face. Now, it's not bad to have regrets. Of course we have regrets. That's just part of being human. But I realize how much it can cause me to focus on wrong, and how wrong, which is nothing more than a focus on myself. And so I'm invited every day or every encounter, I'm invited, and Lent gives us that wonderful space to go ahead and name those and to have an opportunity to invite them to lose their power and to begin the journey of getting lost and away. So without focusing on them, there's more openness to be able to focus on what is beautiful and what is healthy. Another one might be self-battles, that internal battle back and forth. Ever have those? Probably every hour of every day in some way. Did I hurt that person terribly by saying that? What have I caused? Did I trust that? So that our fights that are inside of us keep focusing on ourselves. And then there's shame, or then there's blaming others, or then there's blaming ourselves, or then there's grudges, or then there's feeling dismissed, or there's feeling inadequate. All friends of ours, right? that we can invite to say, bye, we're going to lose you. We can name whatever keeps us focusing on some powerful parts of ourselves that need to be lost and released, because the gift we have to receive is that gift of living lives of purpose and freedom and love and compassion and companionship and love and making mistakes and being ourselves. In other words, our text says that when we lose our lives for the sake of Jesus, for the sake of the gospel, we find it. So when we talk about giving up something for Lent, and Pastor Dave and I remember thinking quite a while ago when we were looking at Lent, what does it mean to give up something for Lent, right? And we chatted about this idea a little bit more. I agree it's a little bit different than giving up chocolate, a little more serious than giving up chocolate. And I want to say that I will never accept that I am supposed to give up chocolate any time of the year. But the message of Jesus is clear. No matter the challenges of our human pain and the sufferings we experience, when we live our lives counter to this unjust world, it's rough. But his message is clear. He is there. And again and again and again, we can hear the resurrection is there. And during Lent and any time, we will never walk alone. Thanks be to God.